Abilene North. Thanks for staying with us. All right, so when we're talking about this Carver neighborhood, tell me a little bit about your future plans for this neighborhood as part of the organization.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that the historic work we've done can be characterized as mostly removing the negative from the neighborhood. Now we're transitioning into the work of adding the positive back into the neighborhood. So the things that are primarily missing in the neighborhood, if you go through the neighborhood, I think it would be generous to say that 2 out of every 5 lots in the neighborhood actually have a structure on them. And so we are desperately in need of housing, and we are desperately in need of housing that is of high enough population density to support local tax revenue, to take care of our infrastructure, and to support neighborhood businesses. You know, you can't have a coffee shop on the corner or a neighborhood store if there aren't enough bodies in the neighborhood to shop at those places. So we're wanting, you know, as I said earlier, we're planning to start purchasing a lot of the vacant lots in the neighborhood, so that, because as the neighborhood association of the neighborhood, if we own land in the neighborhood, that is functionally owned by the neighborhood. For instance, we have the Curtis House Cultural Center as one of our main programs. That's not just the Black History Museum for the city of Abilene and the big country. The Curtis House Cultural Center is owned by the Carver neighborhood, as far as I'm concerned. And we want to continue that pattern as we go out and we purchase these lots and then partner with local developers to develop these lots. We don't just need single-family homes in the neighborhood. In our country right now, we have almost entirely focused on developing, on the one hand, single-family homes, and then on the far end of the spectrum, block-scale apartments. There's this whole range of missing middle housing that is single-lot scale housing, but is higher density. So duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, bungalow courts, cottage courts, mansion apartments, work-live arrangements, which we stopped building decades ago. But that's the kind of housing that we need in these neighborhoods if we're going to have that sufficient population density, both to take care of our infrastructure as well as to support local businesses. And that's exactly what we want to see happen in the neighborhood. And
those things are almost trendy right now too. So we're in a good time to start these type of new, if you will, endeavors of
absolutely
the bungalow type things and this work-live balance, right?
Exactly, absolutely. We need, like, it's funny, if you talk to younger renters and homeowners, they're willing to sacrifice square footage inside their home if it means that they live in a walkable space. So we do want to attract those kinds of folks, but in doing that, we also want to be able to keep the people who have those historic roots in the neighborhood, which then creates this beautiful I don't even know what word to use for it, but a mixed income neighborhood where you have people from all different backgrounds interacting together, sharing the space. You have, you know, little old ladies that have lived in the neighborhood for decades that are being able to watch out for these new young families and their kids and introduce them to the place. I know it sounds idyllic and beautiful in many ways, but it's possible and we see this in different parts of the country. It's working. We just need to steal these ideas and bring them to Abilene.
So why is it beneficial to have this mixed income type philosophy?
So decades and decades ago, our country tried to create affordable housing by saying, let's put all of our most vulnerable folks in this very small, very dense area. And we've all seen the movies, we've all heard the stories. It didn't work very well. If we're actually going to create economic viability for low-income neighborhoods, then it has to be a mixed income space. It has to, the folks coming into that space that do have more economic resources do create a level of economic stability for the neighborhood that make it possible for the neighborhood to, as a whole, become more economically stable. But again, the gentrification piece is where doing that means that the people who already live there get pushed out, and that's that key point of if we don't do that piece well, then frankly, just please, Abilene, run me out of town, because I don't need to be doing this work if we can't do that.
So, you know, you're talking about potential businesses and more businesses coming in too, right?
Yep.
Very cool. So, what can the public do to help out this neighborhood? You know, you mentioned that you guys have neighborhood cleanups and there's neighborhood events and those sorts of things. And I know you guys are applying for lots of grants, but what can the public do?
Frankly, a lot of what we need right now is funding related. We don't, we're a small organization. We haven't asked for a whole lot in the past, and we've accomplished a lot primarily through volunteer labor, volunteer hours. But as we're transitioning to beginning purchase a lot of the land in the neighborhood, that takes money. It takes attention on behalf of a staff. It takes all of these things. It just takes funding that we've never had in the past. One of our first moves that we're making is there's an 18-unit development in the neighborhood that was built. It was built 19 years ago, called the Carver Townhomes. We're in the process of purchasing those, and one of the very first things that we're going to do after we purchase them is that we're going to use the equity in those units to create a line of credit with one of our banks and start purchasing other empty lots of lands. And the more of the neighborhood that we can own, the more that the neighborhood itself can control its own destiny.
And so we talked about this, but this is really just a catalyst, to be able to buy more of these, to empower these people to really live and improve their neighborhood, right?
Absolutely. It's very, very rare that a nonprofit has a moment when it can really just step up to the plate and dramatically expand its capacity and what it's able to do just by doing one simple thing. But this is one of those moments, and this is that moment for ICAN, where as soon as we're able to purchase those units, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but it's going to change the future of this neighborhood dramatically.
And what's better for this neighborhood is really better for Abilene, right?
Absolutely. If all we ever do with our low to moderate income neighborhoods is gentrify them, then that means that the folks that live in those neighborhoods just get pushed out to another neighborhood that's at this point on the way down. And then we're just moving around our low income neighborhoods and creating a much more fragile system overall. The economics behind this are it's imperative that we actually do these things for economics as well as for the sake of the people that are actually in these neighborhoods.
Very good. I know that there's going to be a lot more coming from the Carver neighborhood and ICAN, so thanks for joining us, Rustin.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
BCP continues right after this.